It looks like I start talking before it starts recording. Somehow it opens the PowerPoint and then I'm already talking. But anyway, you're not missing much, just one or two words. So let's add a little bit more detail. I already showed this waterfall of sand in the Monterey Canyon. How are those canyons formed? Basically, the beach compartments are produced by having rivers that supply the beach sediment, and then the beach itself that is receiving the sediment, and then you have these offshore canyons. Okay, and then we'll also learn the concept of beach starvation, where human activities actually block the supply of this sediment to the beach, which goes through its wave processes, grinding, erosion, and forms the sand that gives us the nice beach, right? So here is the beach compartments along the Pacific coast of the US. There is Santa Barbara, there is Santa Monica, there's Oceanside, there's San Diego down here. Beautiful, beautiful coast, right? So you have the average longshore drift coming from the north to south, because all the storm energy is actually way in the north in the Gulf of Alaska region at the US-Canadian border. And that sets up the pressure gradient so that the longshore current is running right down from those high latitudes all the way down into the end of California into Mexico. The same thing happens in the Atlantic side. There is a lot of energy being put into the ocean by the storms way up in the north in the Labrador Sea region. That is setting up the currents that are flowing down the coast. So longshore drift at the US coasts is southward on both sides. So you can see the average direction of the longshore transport shown here in red arrows, and you can see interior to that there are these compartments being formed, which builds up the pressure gradient, and there is a curvature in land where the buildup happens because of the flow and kind of the venturi effect in a loose sense. And you have these offshore flows, so along shore, and then suddenly you have these offshore flows. So you have the Hueneme Canyon here, the Mugu Canyon, and the Redondo Canyon here, and the Newport Canyon, La Jolla Canyon, and so on. So there are these multiple beach compartments being created. You can see the blown up version of the San Pedro compartment here. So sand is swept down the coast by rain, river, so there is a river supply of sediment. There is the longshore transport that we are talking about, and then there is a flow off into the open ocean, and there is a submarine canyon. Who cares about this? Actually, the Navy, right? So San Diego, for example, has a huge naval port, and Navy wants to protect all the coastlines, so they need to know every single detail of the coastal flow, not only water and winds and waves, but also these sediments, the canyons, and so on, right? So they make very, very high resolution computer models to look at how the flow is happening and how the canyon flows are happening, and so on and so forth. The other types of shorelines are called emerging shorelines. So it's basically related to plate tectonic activity. For example, if the Pacific plate is pushing into the North American plate and pushing up the North American plate, then shorelines are going to emerge above the current sea level. So you're going to have things like marine terraces. They are flat platform like formations that are backed by cliffs, and then you have stranded beach deposits, which means the sea level has changed so that the parts that were underwater before are now exposed, or parts that were exposed before have been submerged, and so on and so forth. So here stranded beach deposits basically are an indication that that shoreline was before underwater, and now it has risen above. So here is a example of with a schematic. So you have drowned beaches because sea level has risen, and then you have ancient cliffs and marine terraces which have been exposed, or they are submerged dune topography. We'll see soon that sea level changes by a lot, and in fact in the last 12,000 years it has changed by almost 100 meter. So that makes a difference in how the sea level looks. So I'm going to put the sea level in a different podcast, but I already introduced it. So you have beach compartments formed by the longshore drift, which builds up pressure gradient and shoots off current going off into the ocean, and there are canyons which favor the pressure gradient and the flow of sediments into those canyons can be millions of tons. Okay, it's like a waterfall of sand. That's not a small amount. So the Navy ships and so on actually have to be very sure that they know where these are to navigate safely around them, right?